Welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolf here, and today I am going to be judging your takes. Normally, you guys would be judging my takes or Gavin's takes or whoever we have on here's takes, but instead, today we fielded some of your takes. I'm going to be judging them on today's episode right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks, and I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us a part of your daily routine. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the notification bell on YouTube or the auto download function on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. You could become an everydayer. And if you want to keep the conversation going with Gavin and I, perhaps you want to use this opportunity to send us some of your own takes after this episode, you can check us out on Subtext. So be sure to check that out in the episode description. You can literally text us right from your phone. It's pretty cool. So definitely check that out. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief at Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find strict.land. And I am judging some takes today. So we put out a little solicitation for you guys to send us your best takes. I got 3 of them in the chamber for today, but if this is something that you if you want to throw your take out there and see what we think about it, you can always send them to us either in the YouTube comments, on Twitter, wherever it is that you want to do it. It's always fun for us to interact with you guys in this way, just like with mailbag questions. So definitely send us your take. If you've got a hot take, leave it in the comments or whatever of this episode if you want to. But first take I'm going to get to here comes from Schwinny Poo, who you might know on Twitter as @SchwinnyPoo. He sent this from the Strickland Discord, which you can check out if you're a Strickland Patreon member. But Schwinny says, trading Immanuel Quickley plus picks, which is absolutely effing insane, for OG Anunoby would have been a major error that set the team back in the short and long term. And we should be thankful the Raptors have given the Knicks reason to sue them to extinguish any chance of doing a deal with them. So I would say in general, and I mean, this doesn't come as a huge surprise because Schwinn and I both work at the Strickland and tend to have similar basketball taste, but I'm in agreement on this one. I do think that it would have been a mistake to do that sort of deal for OG Anunoby. Although I guess I'll throw my one devil's advocate caveat out there. At first, I don't think that it would necessarily sink the Knicks. I don't know that this, like Schwinn said, both short and long term. So if I'm playing semantics here, I don't know about it being super, super damaging in the short term. I think that OG Anunoby is a really good player right now. I think that he would give you more defensive versatility than you would get with IQ. I mean, this is a guy that every time we talk to like Sean Woodley from Locked On Raptors or, anyone else who's got any sort of investment in watching the Raptors, it's like this guy can realistically guard pretty much every position on the floor. He might struggle against like Joel Embiid or something, like one of the biggest centers in the league, but biggest, most talented centers in the league. But for the most part, this guy has the length to keep up with pretty much anyone. He's got like a 7-foot plus wingspan on like a 6'8" frame, if not even a little taller. And so that's super valuable on defense. He can obviously shoot the 3. I've said before, one of my concerns is I think that maybe he has a little bit of an overinflated idea of what his offensive role should be. And that, he possibly thinks that, he should be more of a shot creator. And I don't know that I totally buy that, which I'll get to in the next segment when we tackle basically the opposite of this take. But I do think that he's a really good player. He can hit the 3, which the Knicks definitely need. And he can play phenomenal defense on, pretty much any player that steps on the court. So I don't know that the Knicks would necessarily take a huge step back this year, other than obviously, who's going to handle the ball with that second unit then. I don't know what that ends up looking like. So do you, who plays backup point at that point? If you get rid of Immanuel Quickley to get OG, which OG then sort of can help you solve some of those problems with like who backs up Julius Randle, like who's going to play more of the, like if you need a more traditional backup four, who can do that? OG could do that. I would imagine that he would probably come off the bench if he came to the Knicks. Had this deal gone down, this theoretical deal of basically IQ for OG, including some picks with IQ, and assuming you get to keep RJ, Grimes, Brunson, all these guys, I think you would probably come off the bench and have a high minute bench role, kind of similar to Quickley, which maybe wouldn't make OG the happiest, but that's neither here nor there. But at that point, who plays the backup point? Is it Deuce? Like, do you believe in Deuce? I think Deuce is a good insurance policy for if someone gets traded and then you need someone to sop up minutes. He's always been a positive in his time in the NBA because of his defense. But is he ready to kind of run the show on the second unit yet? Is his 3-point shooting up to snuff yet? I don't know that I would feel confident enough to do that before the season, before getting to see him play and, see how he's developed over the summer. Do you bring Rokas Jokubaitis over from Lithuania? Obviously it was just part of upsetting Team USA in the FIBA World Cup in the second group stage. So, he's having a really good World Cup. He looks like he's developed his game to a level where you might feel comfortable bringing him over to the NBA now and seeing what he has at that level. But if it's not Rokas and if you don't have faith in Deuce yet, then what's your plan for that backup point guard spot? What's that plan for the future? Like, do the Knicks finally make a new draft pick? They haven't made a draft pick of note in 2 years, since the Grimes, Deuce, and Jericho Sims draft. They haven't really drafted anyone who's had any aspirations of making the team. They did take Trevor Keels in 2022, but he's off the team already. So, things are not looking great there. And then, of course, did not make any draft picks in this past year's draft. So, it's like, what's your plan going forward? If you're trading Immanuel Quickley right as he's, becoming extension eligible and all that stuff for OG Anunoby. But yeah, I think the biggest part for me that I mostly agree with here with Schwinn is the picks. He's not, I maybe you can make a case that OG is, a small amount better than Immanuel Quickley at this particular moment, but he's not demonstrably better to the point that when you consider their ages, ceilings, everything else, they'd have to give up like 2 or 3 picks, even if they're only protected picks, for him to make this deal quote unquote fair. I don't think that that would be anything other than really just kowtowing to an opposing GM who's sort of on the ropes anyway. And, Masai Ujiri with the Raptors, he's sort of in a weird spot right now where he can't really decide what he wants to do as far as like contending, not contending. He has Scotty Barnes, who's been a little up and down. He's got Pascal Siakam, who's like an all NBA level guy that is saying that he's not going to sign an extension anywhere he goes, that he wants to hit free agency no matter what. He's got OG Anunoby, who's not a superstar, but he's asking for a superstar package for. I think it's just kind of like, if you make this deal and you trade him a bunch of picks plus a really good young player for OG Anunoby, you're basically like helping a GM in division, which is not great. So I definitely, and you're signing up to be the guy that gives OG his next payday this coming summer too, I should note, which would not be great as well. So yeah, I'm definitely glad that the Knicks are not going for OG and that they have this new pending legal action with Toronto, which is going to keep them from, probably pursuing this trade or any business with the Raptors anymore. And so for that reason, I give this Schwinn take an A. I think, my only gripe is the thing about it not necessarily making the Knicks any better this year. I think there's a chance it can make them better, but not a super high one. So not enough to knock it down from an A. But in the next segment, watch as this take gets turned completely upside down. And I tackle this from the other side of, what if the Knicks completely blew it up and went for OG Anunoby? Spoiler alert, I'm not a huge fan of it. But we'll get to that in the next segment. But for now, I do have to real quick remind you guys that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. And you can get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, and I'm back in continuing to grade takes here. And this one comes to us from Twitter, a consistent mailbag question asker slash now take presenter, I guess we'll call it. Buy low, sell high on Twitter at swing_trade55. And swing trade, buy low, sell high starts with a bunch of special characters. Let's see, we've got percentage sign, asterisk, and symbol, up caret. We got the numbers, number sign / hashtag, at, whatever, bunch of other symbols. I'm assuming that means starting with an expletive. And then we get into the take here. So the take is hashtag trade Randle, allow RJ to flourish, hashtag fire Tibbs, never seen a more stubborn human being. And then says use our assets to get OG and Macau, get rid of Randle, RJ and IQ if we must, plus picks, equals easily a championship NBA team in 2023-24. Yeah, I mean, so I think that Gavin and I have attacked roughly the same scenario. I think also from Bilo Soha, but it's worth revisiting like once a month or so. I don't think much has changed in my mind. I think this idea of blowing the team up at this stage after just making the second round of the playoffs last year, after showing as much improvement as the Knicks did, and with so many young players that could potentially take a step forward this year and raise the overall floor and ceiling of the team on their backs in Grimes and RJ and Immanuel Quickley and even Deuce McBride, like all these guys that are on the team that could get better this year. I mean, even Jalen Brunson could get better. He's still fairly young. Like there's a lot of rising tide going on with the Knicks right now. And so to blow it up right now, I feel like plus using all your draft capital, I don't necessarily like the idea, especially if it's not even going to necessarily make your team demonstrably better. And I definitely don't think that Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby are the answer for that. If I didn't make my case enough against OG in the last segment, I'll continue here. I mean, I understand that part of the reasoning of doing a deal like this is that there's too many guys that can self-create on this team, and too many guys that are maybe relying on that. Like you could say Julius isn't good enough without the ball in his hands, so you want to get someone who's a little lower usage at that spot. Ditto for RJ, because you have a team where you have a guy in Jalen Brunson that is extremely good at creating his own shot, creating for others, getting inside and dishing out to shooters, stuff like that. So you want to get those sort of players. So I can understand that. But I don't think that you want to then solve the problem of having too many self-creators by jetting all of them and leaving Jalen Brunson on an island, because as this take implies from buy low, sell high here, he's saying potentially trade Randle, RJ, and IQ and picks to get OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. I don't see it, because I don't think that you want to take having too much shot creation and then turn that into having not enough shot creation. And OG Anunoby, I don't think is a creator. I think that he's a good spot up shooter. He's a fantastic defender, but the numbers suggest that he loves to try to get inside and ends up in the mid-range a lot. And he's not even a good mid-range shooter. He takes a higher proportion of mid-range shots than most players at his position do. Most players in the NBA do at this point. And yet he also doesn't make them at a high clip compared to his peers. So sort of like Randle in 20 to 21, but without the charm of being one of the best mid-range shot makers in the NBA. So that's not great. Mikal Bridges, I'm just not totally sold yet that he is like that he made a true star turn last year, which I think a lot of people think, that he's a star now. This is what it is. He scored like 50 points or whatever. So like he must be a star. I don't buy it. I think that he's still a really, really good basketball player. But I don't know that I would trust him to soak up tons and tons of usage. I don't know that I would trust him to self-create on a consistent basis and be a guy that you just kind of have to hand the ball to and say, like, get a bucket in a high leverage situation. He just doesn't inspire me like that. So yeah, I don't know. Plus, giving up a ton of picks to do it just kind of reeks of change for the sake of change to me. Um, and you give two division rivals the chance to use those picks on actual stars later down the line. It just, I don't know, it reeks of desperation to me, if I'm being completely honest, to do something brash like that. But also, I guess, I mean, the main point here is trade Randle and allow RJ to flourish. And that then we're talking about 3 seconds later, trade RJ if you have to. I don't know. I mean, do you want RJ to flourish or do you want to trade him? I think that's my other thing with this whole take. I don't know. I don't know where it's going. I know that Randle getting out of town is one of the core tenets. And as much as I agree that he underperformed in the playoffs his first 2 times, I don't think it's being talked about enough that he was really hurt at the end of this season with that double ankle sprain in the playoffs, and I think that hampered him a bit. And I think given how great his regular season was this year, I think he probably deserves a little more rope than that, especially than just being essentially jetted for the sake of being jetted. The only part here that I agree with in the long term is that I don't think Tibbs is a coach to get this team to a title, but I do think firing him right now after this past year, getting the Knicks to the second round, having them play as well as they did, I think that would be a bad look for the team. I don't think that helps you in league circles. I don't think that helps you among other coaches, when you're starting to look for another coach, because they'd say, well, what do I have to do? Is it like title or bust here? Or I'm going to get fired in a year or two. I don't think that would be a good look. So I think it'd be better to just kind of wait it out with Tibbs. I don't think he's the coach to get this team to a title, but I think you can wait for him to slip up in the sense that this team has expectations now. So, you wait for him to not meet those expectations. And then that gives you the opportunity to move to a better coach organically down the line and set yourself up, hopefully, to be a championship team in like a year or two from now. If you can make that big star trade and, get a coach that'll be a little more innovative, a little more modern than Tibbs with the defensive foundation and everything that Tibbs has laid down, I think he'd be in pretty good shape. So all in all, though, sorry, buy low, sell high, swing trade. But I think you're just a little too up to your namesake here with the swing trade thing. I give this a D minus. So we're going to our next segment in just a sec. And there I'll talk about if RJ should get traded for Damian Lillard, if he plays well enough, if the Knicks should just go ahead and make that trade. So that's coming up next in our next segment of Locked On Knicks. All right, and I'm back in to finish up grading the takes. I got 3 takes. Like I said, if you've got a take that you want me to grade or Gavin and I to grade on a future show, drop it in the YouTube comments now. Drop it on Twitter under the tweet that we, send this episode out on. Feel free to put it somewhere because I think that I think a lot of more people have takes than who sent them in. So I always love seeing stuff from people. I would have loved to have a couple more for this episode. So send some in. Maybe we'll be able to have a second episode like this or even more episodes going forward. So it's something a little different than just a regular mailbag. But this comment comes from YouTube. This came from the YouTube community tab. Shout out the YouTube community at BM-CY2WN. BMCU2N. I don't know. That's how I'm going to decide to say that's an abbreviation. Maybe it's none of that. But BM's take here is RJ Barrett will play well enough to be traded for Damian Lillard and the Knicks make the finals. Pretty bold stuff, especially the finals part. I don't know. That seems kind of crazy. I just don't know that the Knicks are going to be a finals team for at least another year or so. It probably will take a big star trade to get them in that conversation. But I don't know if Lillard is that big star that I would necessarily want to go after. I guess my big thing with this take is if RJ's playing well enough to get traded for Lillard as the sole player of note in the deal, because, the implication here with how this was phrased is like RJ plays well enough to get traded almost straight up for Damian Lillard, maybe with like a couple picks attached, then like wouldn't it be better to just not trade him at that point? I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of just of the belief like, you know, RJ is showing something in with Canada right now in FIBA play. It seems like he might be poised for a pretty big year. So if he does come in and start having that big year, he's 23 years old. Lillard is like 33, 34 at this point. I mean, he's getting up there. His injury concerns are finally starting to catch up to him. He had arguably one of his best years in the league last year. So I mean, he's clearly not getting much worse at the moment. And he's still like a 30-point per game scorer, good distributor, all that stuff, but a pretty horrid defender. So are you going to trade the 23-year-old on the upswing for the 33-year-old that you get a year out of 2 years before things start to really decline? On top of which you'd be paying him like $60 million plus by the end of his deal. I don't know. It just doesn't totally jive with me. Let's just put it this way. Like, I think the only reason that Lillard isn't on Miami already is because the Blazers don't like Tyler Hero and other players that the Heat are offering and whatever picks Miami can throw together. And like, say whatever you want about Tyler Hero, but he's a 20-point per game scorer over the last 2 years. He's shot 44% from the field, 39% from three, 90% from the free throw line for the last 2 seasons. So like, he's a really great scorer. He's definitely a more put together scoring product than RJ Barrett at this point in their respective careers. Although I would argue not a better player overall, necessarily, or at least not with a higher ceiling, thanks to size concerns, defense, which I think RJ, even at his worst, is going to win out on, and distributing. But still, that's a really good, efficient scorer that the Blazers are basically saying we don't want him. Give us something better, and plus picks, plus more players. And so that means like if RJ takes a big enough leap that they start considering, oh, we would just pretty much just take RJ plus salary match. Let's say you still have, Fournier on the team and you haven't bought him out or anything. You're just kind of holding out for him to be a trade chip. So he becomes that trade chip with RJ, and you basically just trade those two and like one or two of the protected picks. Like if he's that good that they're willing to take that deal and finally budge on trading Lillard, where they've been sort of, stubborn so far this offseason, then I would assume that means that RJ's hitting from three on volume. He's continued his development as a scorer and a free throw drawer inside. He's stepping up his game on the defensive end. In which case, like, why are you trading him for this small window that might not even work? Because I don't think that Lillard and Brunson would really work as your starting backcourt. There's just not enough length. There's not enough defense there. And you want to talk about guys that need the ball too often. I mean, I don't know that I really trust Lillard without the ball in his hand too much, like as an off-ball guy. And if that's the case, then you're gonna have Lillard handle the ball all the time and take the ball out of Jalen Brunson's hands again. It just doesn't seem like it creates a situation that will be much better than it was in like Dallas, for example, where Brunson was not handling the ball all that often and was playing off of Luka. And that was kind of the reason they went for greener pastures with the Knicks, other than like $5 million more per season, which everybody always conveniently forgets about the tampering stuff and whatever. But it's I just feel like it would not necessarily create the best roster balance. But yeah, if RJ actually is that good and you want to trade him for whatever reason, I mean, I think that I would just, if he's making that sort of leap, that it's like, oh, like Portland is considering that they would take him straight up for Damian Lillard, then I'd say like just go make a Godfather offer to Oklahoma City for SGA or something. Like don't go after Lillard in that case. Just shoot for a bigger star. If you want to really make that upgrade, and you'd want to get someone who's young and in their prime, but still with some meat on the bone to potentially get better, and have a prime window of at least like 4 or 5 years to compete for a championship with Brunson. Like, think of like when the Knicks traded for Melo. You know what I mean? Like Melo was 26 at the time. It seems like a lot of stars now get moved when they're closer to 30. And I don't know that really jives with what the Knicks should be trying to do right now as a team that is one of the younger teams in the league on average and was one of the better teams in the league last year. According to, the playoffs, they were one of the 8 best teams left in the NBA last year. So they were in the top third of the league as far as, how well they played last year. So, I think that I would only want to trade RJ if you get like a demonstrable upgrade like that, like an SGA who still has the opportunity to still even get better and is better than RJ at this particular moment. Someone that makes you better in the future and in the present. And then, you can justify saying, okay, RJ Barrett plus picks plus, maybe one other young player or something. If RJ takes that leap and proves himself good enough to be included in a deal for a player of that magnitude. So I think that's the only way that I would probably look to do this deal. So I'm going to give this take there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot wrong with this one, unfortunately. Why trade RJ for an aging star? Damian Lillard, I don't think makes the Knicks that much better because of the defensive concerns with Brunson and taking the ball out of Brunson's hands. And then Knicks making the finals, I definitely don't think would happen. So I'm going to unfortunately give this one a C-. So that's it for the show. I hope you guys enjoyed the first round of Grade Your Take. Hopefully we'll have more in the future because I thought this was pretty fun. I like hearing your guys' opinions and gives me an opportunity to roast back for once, instead of just getting roasted in YouTube comments or whatever, get a chance to, throw a little analysis back at you about your own thoughts on the team. So if you have any takes that you want graded, drop them in the YouTube comments under this video. Drop them to us on Twitter if you're listening in pod form, at Locked On Knicks, whatever you want to do. Let us know what you think. And we're always happy to give our thoughts on your thoughts. It's actually our favorite thing to do because we get bored of hearing our own opinions over and over again. So drop those if you want. But until next time, thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.